On the morning of February 6th, 1958, a plane tried to take off 3 times. The first 2 attempts failed. The pilots knew something was wrong, and yet, on that 3rd attempt, they tried again. That decision would shatter a generation. Welcome back to Epoch Stories, where we bring history's most powerful moments back to life. If you're new here, you've arrived at the right time. And if you're a returning viewer, you already know we don't do surface-level history. We go deep. Today, we're telling the story of the Munich Air Disaster, a catastrophe that didn't just kill people. It killed a dream. It broke a city, and it forced football to ask itself a question it had never had to ask before. What happens when the beautiful game loses its most beautiful team? To understand why this crash shook the world the way it did, you have to understand what Manchester United were in the 1950s. They weren't just a football club. They were a movement. Under the management of Sir Matt Busby, United had built something extraordinary. Busby didn't just recruit players. He developed boys, teenagers, kids who grew up inside the club, trained inside the club, and became something the football world had never quite seen before. A team that played with both discipline and joy at the same time. The press gave them a name, the Busby Babes, and the name fit perfectly. Most of these players were barely in their 20s. Duncan, the heartbeat of the team, was only 21 years old. Roger Byrne, the captain, was 28 but had been leading this group for years. Tommy Taylor, Eddie Coleman, David Pegg, Liam Whalen. These weren't just good footballers. They were generational talents. The kind that come around once in a lifetime, if you're lucky. In the 1956 and 1957 seasons, Manchester United had won the English First Division title back-to-back. They were also competing in the European Cup, a competition that English clubs were only just beginning to take seriously. And United weren't just competing. They were threatening to dominate it. On February 5th, 1958, they played Red Star Belgrade in Yugoslavia in the second leg of their European Cup quarterfinal. The match ended 3-3. Combined with a 2-1 win in the first leg, United advanced. They were through to the semifinals. The mood on the team was electric. These were young men who believed they were unstoppable. And honestly, watching them play, it was hard to argue otherwise. The next day, February 6th, they boarded British European Airways Flight 609 at Belgrade Airport, heading home to Manchester. The plane, an airspeed ambassador, made a scheduled refueling stop in Munich, Germany. At Munich Airport, the weather had turned. Snow was falling. The runway was slushy. But nobody was panicking. Refueling happened. The passengers reboard. Everything seemed routine. Then the first takeoff attempt failed. The engines weren't building power the way they should. The pilots, Captain James Thane and Captain Ken Raymond, aborted the takeoff. They taxied back, checked the systems, assumed it was a boost surging issue. A technical problem they thought they could manage. The second attempt failed too. At this point, some passengers had started to get nervous. A few people got off the plane briefly. There were quiet conversations. That feeling, the one you get when something doesn't feel right, started spreading through the cabin. The decision was made to try one more time. And here's the thing that makes this moment almost impossible to process. At this point, Captain Thane had considered suggesting they call it a day and spend the night in Munich. But the concern about delays, schedules, and the pressure to get home won out. So they lined up for a third attempt. If you've been watching till now, do me a quick favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this story reach more people. And if you haven't subscribed yet, join the Epoch Stories family right now. We tell history the way it deserves to be told. The third takeoff began. The plane accelerated down the runway, but it was slower than it should have been. The slush on the tarmac was creating drag, pulling against the aircraft like a weight tied to its wheels. The plane hit the end of the runway, tore through the perimeter fence, crossed a road, and smashed into a house at the edge of the airfield. The left wing was torn off. The tail snapped. Part of the fuselage hit a wooden hut, which caught fire immediately. The cockpit slammed into a tree. In seconds, everything was gone. Of the 44 people on board, 23 were killed. 8 of them were Manchester United players. Roger Byrne, Tommy Taylor, Eddie Coleman, Mark Jones, David Pegg, Jeff Bent, Liam Whalen, and Billy Whalen. Duncan Edwards, the young man many believed would become the greatest English footballer who ever lived, survived the initial crash. Badly injured, he fought for his life in a Munich hospital for 15 days. Doctors marveled at his will to live. He was asking about football, even from his hospital bed. But on February 21st, 1958, Duncan Edwards died. He was 21 years old. Matt Busby himself was pulled from the wreckage, barely alive. He received the last rites twice in the hospital. Twice, the church prepared for his death. Twice, he refused to go. When he finally regained consciousness and was told what had happened, what the crash had taken from him, he asked for the names. One by one. And with each name, something inside him broke. He had built those boys. He had watched them grow. And now most of them were gone. There's a detail about this story that very few people talk about. In the weeks after the crash, Matt Busby seriously considered never returning to football. The guilt of having pushed for that European dream, of having put those boys on that plane, nearly destroyed him. His wife, Jean, reportedly told him that the boys would have wanted him to go back, that the best way to honor them was to rebuild. And that's exactly what he did. It took years. The road back was brutal and emotional in ways that football had never experienced before. United had to assemble a new squad almost from scratch. They played the rest of the 1957-58 season on heart alone, reaching the FA Cup final with a makeshift team, though they lost. But the story didn't end in tragedy. 10 years after Munich, in 1968, Matt Busby led Manchester United to the European Cup final. They beat Benfica 4-1 at Wembley. United became the first English club to ever win the European Cup. Busby wept on the pitch that night, and everyone watching understood why. It wasn't just a trophy. It was a promise kept, a monument built for the boys who never made it home from Munich. Munich 1958 changed football in ways that still echo today. It triggered new safety standards for charter flights carrying sports teams. It changed how clubs thought about squad depth, about player development, about the human cost of competition. And it reminded the world that behind every jersey, there is a person, a son, a friend, a dream still unfinished. The Busby Babes never got to see what they could have become, but they left something behind, a standard of youth football, a vision of what the game could be when it's played with courage and love that clubs still chase today. Every time Manchester United walk out at Old Trafford, they carry those 8 names with them. February 6th, 1958, a date that football will never forget. If this story moved you, leave a comment below. Tell me which part hit hardest. Your comments genuinely mean everything to this channel. Like this video if you felt it. Share it with someone who loves football or history, because this is the kind of story that deserves to be heard. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is the time. Epoch Stories exist to make sure history is never forgotten. We'll see you in the next one.